Also, can you turn off the music so that Warner Music doesn't send me a cease and desist letter again?
I cannot stop laughing about that. I mean, it's like not funny, but I felt so bad for Caitlin.
Exactly.
She like put so much effort into that video, and like so many things like happened during the video, and she was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, everybody. We are getting ready to get ready. Getting ready to start tonight's program. I am just, let's see, bringing it up here. I love this plate. I'm super excited to do it with you. We are live. There we go. All right. So funny. Okay. Ooh. I realize with so few people sign up for this. Oh, it feels like it's, yeah, there's no way to just finish. It isn't really my design, it's asked to do it, which was fun, but I thought I think I might switch up with the yellow one because it's more sunrise.
Yeah.
So, and then I want to put the white ones up of the cheese tray, but I have one in the kiln. It doesn't have its back. Anyway, let's see if we got anybody here. Hello there. Thanks for joining in. We're going to give it a couple of minutes and then we'll get started. You should have with you today your plate. And placemat. You should have a dotting tool that looks like this. Actually, it's better to look at it on this side because this is where the numbers are. And you should have your glazes, and you can have them opened up and ready to go. And you have your paper towel that should be a little bit damp. And we'll give everybody a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started. I get easy to forget because it's not part of my routine. I have to think of a way to deal with that.
Yeah, I know. Or Spanish, but I don't know. Maybe there's a picture of our massive they have to say
Yeah.
when it's hard.
Right. I don't know. It's just something to think about how to do it better.
Yeah.
All right. We're gathering our little group together. Very nice. Looking forward to it. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Oop. I should say in a minute. Oh yeah, take your time. I'm really looking forward to this one. This is one of my favorite new designs. So pretty. Here I am alone again. Okay. I've lost whatever audience I had.
My mom, sometimes she's like, "Oh, I'm watching Jackie."
Yeah, exactly. But see, I get to see that when people pop up. It's pretty funny. Guess I'll do two things at once. Okay. All right, well, welcome to the Sun Goddess. I would say that was me, but that would be weird. This is Jackie from the Studio for Art and Craft in Hoppin', or at least heating up, downtown Cobleskill, New York. And I am looking forward to doing the Sun Goddess plate with you tonight because it's a pretty fun design. So if you have your kit, you may be doing it in the yellows like this one, or you might be doing it in the blues or the purples. I don't know. I can't remember if anybody picked the greens. I just wanted to offer a bunch of different choices. So I'm going to try to give you instructions for all the different color choices, and hopefully that won't be a problem for you. If you have any questions, please just use the comments, right? And speak up so that in case it's, I said, you didn't say what to do for the blues. I'll try to remember it that way. So you should have in front of you, I'll take this away because we don't need that anymore. You should have your plate on on the paper placemat. Keep in mind that one of the reasons why I give you the placemat is for you to use to lift and turn your plate. I notice a couple things when the plates come back for firing. One is that sometimes the glaze on the back, on what we call the foot of the plate, is rubbed off. And that tells me, and I can't tell that until after I fired it. And so then I have to refire it. And refiring always makes me nervous. So try not to turn your plate and let it drag on the paper towel. Better to pick up the paper placemat. Pick up the placemat and turn it to turn your plate. Or if you must touch your plate, pick up your plate and turn it. All right, so that's enough talk about plates and placemats. It's hard to get that exciting. You've got your glazes. All right, you're gonna have a light color, either the cream or the light blue to start with, or the light yellow, sorry, those are the choices. That's where we start with the light in the middle. And then you've got your paper towel. That's what you're gonna use to clean your dotting tool with. You got your glazes open, and then you have your dotting tool, which has tips that go from number 1, which is the smallest, all the way around to 8, which is the largest. So I'm going to tell you as we go which tip to use and which color to use. But I'll probably end up referring to them mostly by their hue. So your lightest, so if you're doing blues, it would be your lighter blue. Your purple's lighter purple, you get the idea. Because like I said, everybody's got some different colors. And we're gonna start with the middle and work our way out like we always do. If you've never dotted before, if you have a piece of scrap paper or something handy, it's always a good idea to dip and dot, okay? You can just sort of practice by taking any one of your colors and any one of your tips and just get the feel for what it's like to do a dip and a dot and kind of what your style is. So I'm using tip 4. I'm a pretty heavy dotter, okay, but you might be a light dotter and your tip 4 might look like that. So it doesn't so much matter, but you'll be able to compare your design to mine and figure out whether you need to adjust or why your design even just looks different. So there's 2 types of dotting used in this one. There's the dip and dot, like where you dip and you dot, sort of obvious. And then the other one where we do, I call it brilliantly dot, 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 because you'll start with a dot and then you'll just keep dotting. And what that does is give you successively smaller dots. All right, I'm gonna do it on a curve because we do it on a curve in this. So I just wanna show you what that looks like. Okay, so it gives you that really nice little tail effect. So take a second and try it out. Try a couple of different colors and a couple of different tips. All right, so I'm gonna assume you got the hang of that, and we are ready to begin. Piece of paper over there. All right, so we're gonna start with, I'm doing the purple today because I've already done the yellow and the blue. And we're gonna start with tip number 8. So our biggest tip is the one we're gonna start with in the center. And you're going to use like your lightest color. So if you're doing the yellows, you're actually going to start with light pale yellow. If you're doing the purples, you'll start with the cream color. And if you're doing the blues, you're going to start with that really, really pale blue that you probably doesn't even look like a blue very much. And you're going to take one nice healthy dip and put your dot right in the center. And what you want to do is even leave it there for a second, let it rest so that you get the biggest dot you possibly can get there. Okay? We want a nice big dot in the center. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use our tip number 3. All right? And with that, we're going to put a dot, what I call at the base of each of these lines that I etched for you. So right at the edge of the line, you'll put a dot. Now, what I always recommend, especially since you're starting out with this, is to get one dot down. Don't worry about the size of the dot for right now. Don't, if some dots are bigger than others, once you get them all on there, then you can take a look and determine what if you need to do anything about that. So I'm going to show you something when I finish with this. You'll notice that, I don't know if you can see this on mine or not, but some of my dots aren't super round because that's what happens with the ray. The ray kind of unrounds them a little bit. So once you're done, you can go back and just go straight up and down on top. I wouldn't worry about it being completely round. These are actually all fine, even though as I was doing them, I was thinking, oh no, it's not round. But the beautiful thing about doing the dot mandala with the glazes is that, hey, Letty, is that it'll round itself out in the kiln. So more important that you get it on there and you kind of get it in the right spot. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use tip number 5. And we're going to stick with the same color. We're going to be using this color bit, and we're going to do what I call triangulate. Okay, and what do I mean by that? So for tip 5, we're going to go in between 2 dots and up a little bit. So it forms a triangle between, I'm going to use this pencil to point with, a triangle between the 2 smaller dots and that big dot. All right, I hope that makes sense to you. Little triangle. So then we're going to do that in between every 2 dots. So in between basically every 2 rays. And we're going to put one nice big dot there. Okay. Now, I, of course, have the advantage of being able to put my plate on a turntable because I'm a paint your own pottery studio and I have these things. But again, what I would love for you to be able to do or to be doing is to always be doing your dotting from your side of strength. So I'm left-handed, so it's better for me to paint from the left. If I paint over on the right, I'm likely going to smear something. So I paint over here and then I pick up my plate and turn it around so that I can paint over here again. I'm always painting on the left. Obviously, if you're right-handed, you're likely to always be painting, I know, on the right. So, all right, if anybody has any questions or comments, go ahead and feel free to make them as you need to. Let me check. Yep, you're all fine. All right, and of course, I wait for you to give me your little thumbs up sign so I know that when you're done with a step and I can move on. So this was not a tough step. Most of them here aren't, which is kind of nice. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use tip number 1 in the same color, and we're going to very lightly. The thing that my only quote-unquote rule that I have about painting is that you can always add more, you can't add less. And it can be, if you do find that you make a mistake, like if you put paint down and it runs into one that already exists, the best thing to do is to let it dry, and I'll show you how to clean up your paint at the end. But I don't really want you to try to clean it up as you go, because you'll really just smear it. So just a tiny little bit of paint and put on the line in between your 2 big dots there. Okay, right in between. If it's not on the line, it's more important that it's in between. The on the line is not the most important bit. So just a nice small dot, because you really don't want this dot to run into the two bigger dots. Okay, it's just a filler. So a nice, small, tiny dot. Even someone like me who has a heavy hand needs to go easy, pull back. You can always add more, you can't add less, especially on those where I am very close together. So a nice, tiny, cute little dot in between. Yes, cute dots, that's a thing in my world. I love my cute dots. All right, and we're off to a good start. So I'll let you guys finish that step up. All right, everybody good? Good so far? Hey, Lisa and Marissa, how are you guys today? All right, you're gonna be my guide today. I'm gonna be looking for your thumbs up so I know when it's time to move on. All right, so we've got our center and our first two rings of dots. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a third dot out there, but before I let you do that, before I show you, I'm gonna tell you, I want you to put this dot far enough out so that, because we're going to dot around it. Okay, so here's what I mean. I'm gonna use the same color and I'm gonna use the number 7 tip, and I'm gonna do it on the line, but I wanna do it a little bit further out so that there's room. I'm gonna use my pencil again to show you, so that there's room for me to go underneath it. All right, better to have too much room on this one than not enough. So all the way around, put a nice number 7 dot with the same color right on that line. Like I said, with enough room, give yourself room to go underneath or go around it. That'll be our next step. So a nice happy dots. Nice happy size 7 dot. On each of the lines, okay? Cool. Now, believe it or not, we're finally going to get to involve a new color here. So this is the part. Now, if you're doing purples, one of the things that's a challenge about the purples is that they can look the same. Like the wet glaze. They don't at all look the same once they fire. But interestingly, well, no, I guess not. I'm going to say it's not interesting. The lighter color, there's one that's slightly lighter and then one that's slightly darker. So the slightly lighter is the one you're going to go with. If you're doing the blues, there's a brighter blue and kind of a medium blue. You're going to do the medium blue next and save your bright blue. And for yellows, we're going to go with, well, yellow, because our standout color is actually going to be orange or salmon. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that next color, the one I just recited, and still tip number 1, and we're going to go around this dot. And the way that I do that is I start on the outside. I'm going to see if you can, I always forget which is the best angle. Oh, that's a good angle over here. All right, so I'm going to put, my first dot goes on the outside here. All right, and then I'm going to come around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they almost start to disappear, and that's okay. And then I'm going to re-dip, and I'm going to come down. I only need 4 on this side because I already have my top and my bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can always redot that bottom middle if I need to. But that way you get decreasing size. So I start with 1 at the top, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then dip again. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I hope that makes sense. I'm going to keep repeating it, and I'll keep counting aloud. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of the things to I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the things to remember about this is it's easy to, what's the word I want to use, get really self-judgy about this and not really like any of your dots. But one of the cool things about doing these dot mandalas is that they're somewhat self-correcting in the kiln, and also you're going to get an overall view. I mean, what I kind of want to say is that when you looked at this design and chose to do it, it wasn't because you saw this particular ring of dots standing out and going, ooh, that's what I want for myself. It was the overall effect. So if one dot just doesn't make it for you, it's just not the biggest of deals. It will not be that noticeable. The main thing to do, if you end up with big dots like I did here, I wanted to show you this, and you don't get the full 5 all the way around, you can only fit 4, it's fine. It really turns out, I've done this so many times, it really does not make that big of a difference. You cannot tell when you're looking at your design if you don't have the exact same number of dots on every side. I know that sounds like sacrilege for the people who are very detail oriented. But you're really going for the overall effect here. All right, so you want your big dot on the line. Big is a relative since we're using tip number 1. But you want to basically just dot around that big first dot with your second color. Okay. That's what it's going to look like somewhat when we're done with this step. So I'm gonna wait for everybody to do just that. Hi, Anne-Marie, you're getting a head start on tomorrow. Do you notice I'm using your colors? No, what's today? Tuesday, so Thursday. Hey, Iris. I like how everybody does the preview of the painting. That's so cool. All right, so how are we doing? Everybody, I don't want to rush. I'm going to hold up a second on this one. Let's see, I will show you. What will I do? Oh, I can show you what we're going to be doing next week, in case anybody doesn't know or doesn't remember. We're going to do this. We're switching it up a little bit. I hope that's okay with people. We're going to switch over to a square shape. I love this plate. I actually use this one at home a lot. I have it in white at home. And it's just so functional. I use it for serving so many different things. I like it for dessert. I use it for cheese. It looks great up on the wall. I'm happy with it. So this one you can do either this blue background or a white background. And that's our next Tuesday's plate. So I'll be looking forward to doing that with you. All right, so let's assume that we're all caught up on our little dots. Yes, thank you. I need that feedback. And sit here alone in the back of the studio. I can't wait. I might be next Tuesday, fingers crossed. I might be ready to give you the big reveal on the studio and all the changes that we've made. Yes, this is how we've kept ourselves busy. It's doing dot mandala classes and absolutely restructuring our studio from the front to the back. And it's been a lot of fun. And for those of you, a lot of you know, and you've seen some sneak peeks of it when you come to pick up and drop off your stuff. So I'm looking forward to showing you more. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a crown, okay, which is a similar step to the little circle, except we don't go all the way around. We're going to use the same color that we just used, and we're going to use the same tip that we just used. So we're using tip number 1 in that, well, everyone's different colored, lighter purple, brighter yellow, medium blue. I think that's everything. And we're just going to start again on the line, and we're going to do the dot, dot, dot. But instead of going down, you're just going to stop where you have that, I'm going to use my pencil to point, where you have that little valley right between the two. So when I come up here, I'm going to go dot, 2, 3. So we have big dot, first dot, and then 2 more dots to the valley dot. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll do this one next, even though this would normally be my last one. So I'm just going to do this one and then 1, 2. All right? And this gets, so we're going to do, on the first side, we do 1, 2, 3. And then on the second side, we do 1, 2. Okay, any questions about that? All right, so I'm going to do 1. Oops, I skipped. That's very me of me. The only thing you want to try to do is when you're doing the side that has, I don't want to say this, the second side, I always want to try to, like here, I'm not going to start with the big one on the line because I already have it there. So I don't want to press really hard because I want that dot to be a little bit smaller than the first dot. So the way I control that is the amount of pressure that I put on the tool. Less pressure, less dot. 1, 2, 3. Then I put the new one up here. 1, 2. Lightly, 2, 3. Lots of pressure, 1, 2. This is great. It really gives this piece a lot of shape. This particular, the crowns go around it. It kind of ties it all together. Oops. Which is kind of a fun step. All right, and I'm on my last 2, which doesn't mean anything other than I'm just telling you that in case you're watching me, instead of just listening to me babble. Babblers are us. All right, so we've got that nice flower shape. Kind of a lace doily look, isn't it? Which is really funny, isn't it? Because I don't know, I'll tell you why I think it's funny. Because when you look at the finished plate, okay, I'm just going to pull this one up here for a second and show you. Hopefully it won't be too shiny in the glare because it's fired. You don't really even see this because we're going to change the shape of it right now. Okay, but this is what it looks like at this moment. And then we're going to go ahead and change the shape. So let me know when everybody's ready. We're going to be using the same color. All right. And we're going to be moving up to tip 3. And for this one, we're going to do what I will call a half a teardrop. And I think what's important for this one, when you're thinking about doing it, is getting a good arch on it. Okay, you don't want your line to be, and here's what I mean, we don't want your line to be flat. So I'm starting with tip number 3 and the same color. And I want a nice big dot right on that line. And then when I come down, I want to make sure that I'm getting a good curve. So I've got, after the first big dot, I have 4 dots. So I'm putting that up here, nice big dot, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you want to try to get a nice curve to it. If you need to go up a little higher to get that curve, then go up a little higher. 1, then 1, 2, 3. This one only took 3. There's a big dot I started with. 1, 2, 3. Oops. All right. What's important is that the first dot is always on the line because that creates a big part of the look later on. All right, so you always want to start up on that line because the way those are all lined up is one of the things that creates the look versus worrying so much about how many dots you actually have in your half a teardrop there. Okay. Very cool. So, yeah, that's starting to look like something, isn't it? Whoa, what is my hand doing? That was pretty funny. Just like on a different speed or something? Watching myself and doing it are 2 separate things. Okay. Cool. So let's see what we got here. There we go. We're actually going to just repeat that exact step, except we're going to do it with tip 4. Same color, same direction, same everything, just with a larger tip. All right? This one gives it a lot of pow. Because these are all, this is tip 4 is where we get to some nice big standout dots. All right, so on the line with the first one with tip 4, and then 1, 2. For me, it only takes 3 dots because I, as I've said a million times, am a heavy dotter. Okay, 1, 2, 3, all the way around. 1, 2, 3. You should have, just so you know, sometimes you can lose track here. If you're counting your dots up the line from your pale dot, the first, the one that you went around, this should be your 4th dot in this color. If that helps you for keeping track, knowing where you, because I mean, you should be able to tell pretty easily where you started, but if you can't, because that happens to me sometimes, I lose my spot. I'm telling you, you should, this will be the 4th dot. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that's what it's going to look like for now. I'll wait for everybody to get caught up. So I know that I showed you next week's square plate, and I'm just going to show you. I think if you were here last week, you saw this one. This is a one for the week after, 2 weeks from tonight. We're doing this nice big platter. I think when I put it on here, you get the sense of how big this platter is. This one I called Bloomin' Beauty. This is, I don't know if I'm not supposed to have a favorite platter, because I do love to paint platters. I just think it's a great, I just enjoy them in my house. I enjoy to give them as gifts, but this is one my favorite with the round platter and everything, and I just love how this design just is spotlighted on this. I love everything about it. I love the shape, I love the design, I love the colors, etc. So that one is 2 weeks from tonight. And then before we go, tonight I'm going to, I think last week I showed you the one that I had done, right? But it wasn't yet fired. So tonight I'm going to show you what it's going to look like fired. But I figured now you're probably just about ready. The platter is going to be very popular. Yeah, it's pretty lovable. All right, so now we're going to switch to our 3rd color. So if you're doing the yellows, this is either going to be your orange or your salmon, which are both in the orange family. If you're doing the blues, this is going to be your bright blue. And if this is you're doing the purples, this is going to be, I'm just going to call it your other purple, because it's really hard, like I said, to tell the difference between the purples. So this is going to be the other purple. We're actually going to do the same thing, except using tip 5. And the only thing I want to point out on this one is sometimes if you find, let me see if I can, how it'll work for me on this. If I start it up here and then do 1, 2, 3, what I want you to do is switch to tip 3 for your last one, because I don't want that one to be, you're trying to get right into this corner and I want it smaller. You want it smaller. It doesn't matter what I want. So let me show you again. So we're going to start up here and then do 1, 2, 3. And rather than trying to use this big fat tip, I feel bad it's not even in the top, 3 tips. But anyway, rather than that one, let's go down a size to tip 3 just for one last dot on the end of that. Okay, fit it in there nicely. Don't squeeze them in. So big 5, 1, 2, 3, and then switch over a quick dip of tip 3 to get that last one. I think that makes sense. So we're using tip 5 to start with the 3rd color, 1, 2, 3, For me, it's 4, and then switch to tip 3 and stick a last one in there. All right. Let you have your moment of zen without me jabbering. Good luck. It's funny, you know, because sorry, I can't not tell you stuff. It's funny because doing it in the purples, there's absolutely no way to appreciate how cool this and different it looks when it's fired. Because it's true, whenever I do a purple design, they all look the same until they're fired. I mean, I could add 2 more purples and a pink to this design, and it would still look exactly like this. It's really kind of funny. They just, when they're wet, before they're fired, these colors all look so similar. Glazes are funny that way. They're not at all like paints. People always expect, you know, they start painting with the glaze. They're like, oh no, this isn't the color I wanted. And I'm like, I know. Because glazes change a lot when they get heated up. So that's kind of our breakaway moment, is this one, although like I said, it won't be that noticeable. Until we fire this puppy. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for you to finish this one up. I'm just taking a look to see if I can really see the difference. I don't know that I can. All right, how we doing? Okay. I'm going to move us on then to the next step. Now we're going to do a single dot again. We're going back to the first color. So for me, it's the cream. If you're doing the yellows, it's the pale yellow. If you're doing the blues, it's the pale, pale blue. And we're going to do 1 dot on the line. But again, we're going to be going around this dot with little dots again, like we did down here. Okay, so I want you to put this one out a little bit. We're going to use tip number 5. But the key thing to remember is not to go right on top, is to leave a little bit of space between, pencil please, pointer, between this dot and the next one, so there's enough room to put a circle of dots around it. So just 1 dot on the line. I should have probably mentioned this earlier. You get a better, maybe a more rounded dot if you hold your dotting tool straight up and down. I tend to do it on an angle, which is not good sometimes, and then I have to redo it to get it straight up and down. But you get the most round circle, which I suppose makes no sense, because if it's not round, it's not a circle. But, and again, I don't worry about the little indentations. Those will flatten out in the kiln. There we go. So we're putting one of those with a little bit of space, so you can see it really good on the video now that I looked up to watch it. You can see that we've got a little gap there, which is perfect. Oh, that's starting to look like something. I like it. Okay. And once you've got all of those in place, we're going to go back to using tip number 1 and then that second color. So either your bright yellow, if your yellows, your medium blue, or your lighter purple. And whoops, that's not tip 1. This is tip 1. And you're just going to do this, the dot around thing around this one. So I'm going to start on the line just as a reminder, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then dip again and come around the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Start at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how mine are spaced. Yours may or may not be spaced the same. There is no right or wrong. If you come in closer, you'll have one fewer dot. There's nothing wrong with that. It actually looks really cool. Actually, in that one, I did not even have the same number. Spoiler alert. Does not matter. All right. So just dotting all around that big circle. All right, don't forget when you're moving your plate, please don't just drag the plate so that the glaze comes off the bottom. Try to either pick up your plate and move it if your hands are clean, or pick up your paper placemat and use that to twirl it so that the plate stays stable. All right. And last one on this go round for me. Okay. I'll let you guys all get caught up on that one. Give you a couple minutes. I'm gonna go get my cleaning tool to show you that. It somehow got moved off the table. All right, how we doing? Good? All right, so now we're going to do the half circle again, but important, we're gonna do it on the other side. So on this one, the first ones we did on the left, and this one we're gonna go to the right. Now here's how this works. We're going to use tip number 4, okay, to do this, and you're going to use this same color that we were just using. So for me, it's the lighter purple. For you, it might be the yellow or the medium blue. But here's what I want to show you before you get started, because it's important to know for this one where you're going to end, believe it or not. So you're going to start at the top, okay, and you're going to come around, and it's fine if you run out of paint or glaze. The thing to do is to go down a size, okay? Don't re-dip it, because then your dot will be too big. So I was starting with the 4, now I'm actually gonna pop in the 2 to finish this up, because what I want to show you is I'm gonna redot that one, and then I want you to end, what I'm trying to say is on what I call on the high side of this big dot. So you notice that where I ended is not in the middle of this dot, but just a little bit above middle, because I'm actually, you know, as you can imagine, we're going to do another one, and that has to end here as well. And it's very important that it ends in sort of in the middle of that dot. So I'll show it to you again, whoops, just to be safe. So I'm going to go to, flip my tool around, number 4, and I'm going to start up here, 1, 2, 3. I always count, even though it doesn't always matter. Okay, I didn't need my little dipper then. So I ended on the high side of that other big dot. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm going to do it again, starting with tip 4 at the top, and I'm going to come all the way around, following that curve. I'm going to stay snug. I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller tip for my last dot, and I want it on the high side of this dot. I'm hoping that that made sense. Otherwise, that's what they make rewind for. You can go back and look at it, but you want to make sure you're leaving room on that dot down there for the next one to end, because that's what really pulls the whole design together, is that. It's kind of funny, like, well, that's a lot of pressure for a dot, but you know, that's how it works. So we're just going to, I'm just fixing this dot, I don't like it. All right, so we're just going to do that on all of them. All right, see if anybody has any questions. Not so far, okay. So coming all the way around, ending on the high side. Here's my last one. Okay. That baby's starting to come together. What do you think? It's really hard to see the colors. You can barely tell the difference on the sample one that I'm doing between the cream and the purples, let alone the two purples. The yellow, the orange definitely stands out the most in the glaze, but I think you guys have the idea of it, because this does repeat the steps so much. A lot of people were saying that they found the cheese plate last week to be more of a challenge, and I get that. It's a different kind of a design, but this one has maybe is more like some of the earlier designs. It has a lot more repetition in it. So if you finish these, what I want you to do, we're going to start on we're going to move to the last dot in this series, but two things. One is this is going to be, if you're doing the yellow, this is the orange. If you're doing the purple, it's the darker purple. And if you're doing the blue, it's the bright blue. And we're going to be using tip number 5 for this, but important, you want to leave a little bit more room after, just on the round for the first dot, because if we're going to be dotting around the first dot. So here's what I mean by that. As soon as I find my tip 5, there we go. So I'm going to put the dot like right here, and then I'm not going to go too close for my first following dot. And this one is the same thing. So I left a little bit of room. Move my big fat finger out of the way, show you with the pencil. This one has a little more room here, so I'll be able to dot around this. Okay, and then, so switch over to dot, depending on how far down you went, switch over to dot 2 or 3. I got pretty far, so I'm switching to dot 2 just to finish this up with nice small dots. So I'm starting with dot number 5 with leaving a good amount of room. And then I just need to use tip number 2 to finish off. And as you can see, I always redot the dot I just did, because the one that told me I was out of paint, I add a little bit more paint. So my first big dot, a little bit of room. I seem to be able to see that one I barely got 6 dots out of, so I'm going to come use my tip 2 and I'm going to go over those again so that I have a nice full design. I don't want a lot of fading here. Yeah, this one needs 2 different tips. All right, so I'm starting with tip number 5. And then when it starts to run out, I switch over to tip number 2, just to finish it up. All right. right, how's that feeling? That's a little bit different. Okay, checking to see if anybody's got any questions. Nope, this one seems to be following along pretty nicely. All right, so just a couple more on here. So big number 5 all the way around. Oh, that one came all the way in with one tip. I know, these are the things somebody like me would notice. All right, oops. One of the things that's cool about this one and why you want it to come in on that dot below is it gives it that look of one continuous line that if you can see on the sample that looks like that, either the orange or the dark purple or the bright blue, like more of an S, if you will. And that's that's a pretty cool look. So thank you. So that's where we are with that one, with that step. And so while you're finishing that up, I'm just going to do the big reveal here for the plate I showed you last week that was designed and done but not fired. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ta-da! This is what it looks like out of the kiln. That was a fun moment when I opened the kiln and I got to see this, because I'm really happy with it. I think it looks really cool, and I can't wait to teach it. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So some of you who are watching this on the recording afterwards, I won't be able to see your reactions, but I'll know if you order the kit and sign up for the class. But I really like this one. I think it's a lot of fun. It has a cool look to it. I think I called this one Pennsylvania Dutch, just because aspects of the design remind me of that, and the colors of that area. So there you go. That's our newest design. I also have the coasters coming up after that, and then the pinwheel. So we'll keep it going. We will keep ourselves busy this summer. All right, so now we're going to do our last step, which is really 3 steps. But the last section is with the, depending again on your color scheme. When I did this with the yellows, I tipped it in white. You can tip it in the white, or you can tip it in the pale yellow. It's your call. I think I did the same for the blue. I think I tipped it in the white. I can't remember now, sorry. The white's is very bright, but if you didn't want it to be that bright, you can do it in the light blue. And then for the purples, I tipped it in the cream because I knew that the white would be too bright. We're gonna go back to using tip number 1. And to start with, what we're going to do is we're just going to dot around that one that I told you to leave room for. I feel like you guys know the deal with dotting around by now, so I don't have to explain it. Start at the top, go around to the bottom, then dip again and go down the other side nice and slowly so you don't touch anything that's already there. So we're going to do that around each of these big dots at the end. Take your time when you get down to where they come in close. And the other thing I would tell you is, if you did not leave enough room, don't sweat it. Don't try to force it in there. You can come close and without having to go right in between them, and it will give the same look. So it's better to be safe and not overlap your dots, okay? If you didn't leave enough room, which is a typical thing for me, just come close. You can see I'm sort of doing that, called cheating, but it will give the same effect. You can't even tell that I'm not going all the way around. And the nice thing is when you're using tip 1, to be honest, you can get some very, very fine dots if you just don't dot too heavily, if you don't put a lot of pressure. All right. Dotting around should be a thing. I guess it is a thing. Well, as we are theoretically getting ready to come out of hiding here, and looking forward to some of my neighbor businesses coming back online, looking forward to seeing more of you than the 2 minutes we spend together when you're dropping off or picking up. I do want to make sure I say thank you to everyone who has helped us get through this. I think if you don't have this kind, a business, small business or whatever, it can be really hard to imagine what it's like to go from every day to nothing, and then worry and wonder. And I'm aware, I get that this might come back and our fall could be tough, but I'm hoping that I've learned a lot and that I can weather it. But I couldn't do it without you guys. So I want to thank you so much. I thank you for participating in these classes, but also, for telling other people about it and helping to spread the word. I hear from so many people about having something to look forward to, having something fun, discovering a new passion or something you like to do. And that's kind of makes my day. The fact that I am bringing something new to people is really what it's about for me. I mean, that's what I love about doing what I do, is introducing people to something new. So thank you for letting me do that and for supporting us and being part of the fun here. All right, so now we have we've got our circles. The last thing, what we're going to do is we're going to use same tip, same color. We're going to make a triangle on the top. So I'm going to start with the base. I'm going to put 1 on each side. 1, 2. And then put my point at the top. And then all I do is put an extra point at the top, just to give it a little bit more oomph. Give it some direction. So 2 bottom dots. Then I'll probably dip again and do my point and my second point. Does that make sense? It's hard to see. My hand is always in the way. Oh, I think you can actually see that pretty visibly. That's excellent. So base dot, dip again, point, point. Base dot, dip, point, point. All right, so this is all with tip 1 and that first color. Base dot, dip, point, point. Base dot, dip, point, point. All right, and that's how we're going to finish this up. Actually, we're going to do some double dotting when this is over. I lied. This is not the last step. This is the last original step. How's that? Does that make sense? Okay, one more of these for me. Okay, so that's what it looks like at the end. Boy, it just suddenly, that little tail, right, changes the whole look of it. The little points. I love it. I love it when a design element changes the whole look of it. I don't know why. I'm a wacky. What can I tell you? What can I say? But I just love how that all comes together. And then there's one other thing that always changes the look of it. And I'll show you that now. That is when we do the double dotting. So for the most part, I use tip 3 for this. And I'm going to use the brightest color. So if you're doing the yellows, that's the orange. If you're doing the blues, that's the bright blue. And if you're doing the purple, it's the dark purple. And what I'm going to do is add a center dot in 3 places, always on that lightest color. So I'm going to add it to my inner circles. You don't want to make these too thick. Okay. I'm going to go around there. 1, 2, 3. Right in the center. And then we're going to do the same thing on the next one. I'm going to use tip 4 for that because I want it to be a little bit bigger, obviously. That was silly. All right, so I'm just going to use tip 4 for that one. As you can see, I sometimes will try to do 3 on a dip, or at least 2. Okay, so that's that row of circles. And then our last big row of circles, which is this one out here, we can also do the number 4 tip on. Okay. Now that one is might be a little bit wet for you, which is fine. If you're double dotting on a wet spot, you don't press really hard, just let the paint drip onto it. Just lightly touch it and let the dot pull your paint down. Sounds so dramatic. How dramatic can dot painting be, for heaven's sakes? But with me, you never know. But that's what I do for a finishing step. I tend to leave my inner dot plain, but you can double dot that too if you want to. There's nothing wrong with it. You could double dot this if you wanted to. Just the look, that's all. So that's that. All right, let's see if we got any other questions. No, I think you guys followed this one pretty well. So just as a reminder, you're going to leave this to dry totally away from the cat. Cats just love these plates. Remember, if you need to clean up, I didn't have any kissing dots on this one, so I'm just going to pretend. But you want to go to the space where the 2 dots are touching and lightly use a sharp edge. I happen to have the end of a paintbrush, but you can use like a toothpick or even a little nail file. And if you're going to scrape just lightly the paint away, so it's like scrape, scrape, blow, scrape, scrape, blow. Don't scrape too hard. I don't want you to take the base coat off because I won't be able to tell that you've taken the base coat off until after it's fired and raw plate is showing through. So don't just a little bit. You're not trying necessarily to reshape the dots. You just want to make some base coat show in between. So just a little bit of light, and then blow the dust away. Okay? So let it dry. Bring it back with all your stuff, especially your form, so we can keep everybody's plates tracked, your tools, your glazes, etc., and we will put it in the kiln for you. And I guess hopefully we will see you next week, right, when we are doing the square plate. So have a great night. If there aren't any other questions, which I did not see any, and we'll see you next Tuesday.